Wright can check them while we're discussing. Okay. Today we were talking about outlines for your research paper. You've done outlines before, so this is kind of another refresher for you. Your attention getter is the very beginning of your paper. It's the first thing Mrs. Wright is going to read when she's grading your research papers. You want it to be something exciting. You don't want to just start out saying, okay, this is what I'm going to write about. It kind of just sets the tone for your whole paper. You don't want your tone to be, this could be a really boring paper and she's not going to want to read it, and your grade will probably reflect that. So I have some ideas of what you could use. An interesting or famous quote is generally what I use, being an English major, having a lot of different authors. I have a lot of quotes that roll around in my brain, so I use a lot of those at the beginning of my papers. It might not work for you, but you might find an interesting quote that you could use. An antecedent, an interesting or unique definition or word. Second period, there's a girl writing on if cheerleading is a sport. I told her this one might be interesting for her because she could use some cheerleading move in the definition of it, and that could be an interesting way to start her paper. You could use a broad statement, a rhetorical question, or a shocking statistic. If you find a statistic as you're reading through your information that shocks you, more than likely it's going to shock your reader, and it would be kind of an interesting start to your paper. Your thesis statement is the next thing. It's the last sentence you write in your introductory paragraph. You all wrote your thesis statements yesterday, so none of you should have to worry about this one for your paper. Your first main point is the strongest point that you have. It's the one that you have the most evidence. It's the one that makes your claim the most believable. You should, on the worksheet that you are going to get after I'm done with this, will show you that it'll say like your first main point, strongest evidence, and then you'll write the whatever that is, and then you'll have A, B, which is the subpoints of your main point, and that will, it has two sources under it that you use for the two subpoints. So you'll have to write that down. And this right here is you have to have that source, otherwise you can't use that subpoint if you don't have a citation to back up your source. It's technically plagiarism. For your second main point, it's the weakest evidence that you have. You kind of want to try and hide your weakest evidence in between your strongest and the second most convincing that you have, to kind of hide it a little bit. You use a strong transition between point 1 and point 2. Otherwise you'll have point 1 and then point 2 and it'll be choppy and you want it to flow. Again, make sure that you have two subpoints and sources for that. Again, you can't use it if you don't have a citation. Your third main point is the second most convincing evidence that you have. If you have 4 main points or 5 main points, it's just the third most convincing or the fourth most convincing. It just continues on down the line. Again, use a good transition between point 2 and point 3. I recommend that you don't use the same transition that you used from between point 1 and point 2, but it's not a requirement to use two separate transitions. It just would be more creative and more scholarly to use two different ones, so you're not repeating yourself and making yourself sound redundant. Again, with the two subpoints and sources, again, not being able to use it if you don't have it. Your conclusion is wrapping up your main points. You're also restating or rewriting your thesis. My suggestion would not be to take your thesis from your introductory paragraph and just plopping it down in the conclusion, not changing a word of it. Restating is not just reusing it. It is changing it so it says something different. We decided earlier today that third graders say all in all in the end. Your sophomores, you don't need to be using all in all in the end to end your paper. You want to come up with a clever way of ending your paper that will make the reader want to find out more. Even though this is a research paper and you're supposed to prove your claim, after you're done proving your claim, you want someone to take interest. So at the end, giving them some more incentive to go find out more about your topic is a good thing, because if you're actually sending this to a senator or a president, you would want them to be more interested, so they would go for themselves and find out more information and actually start to care, because once they care, then they're going to want to help make your point carried out, if that's the case for your topic. I found this last night. Birds. I found this last night. Go ahead and read it. I found it to be humorous. So basically what this is saying is you don't want your paper to be a hostage situation. You don't want to take tons of different things and throw it all into one paper and it jumps around and skips and moves, and you want it to go from the beginning to end and just flow throughout the whole thing. Everything is just one concise paper from beginning to end. That's what the outline is essentially there for, so you're not skipping around everywhere. Also, this is just kind of a funny motivation thing, just to remind you to continue working hard even though it is 8th period of the day and you're all ready to go home and start your weekend. Like I told the last class, I don't know about you guys, but if there was a shark behind me, I probably would have a little bit more motivation to continue. I don't know if it's one of your life goals to meet a shark, but I know for myself it's not. Also, do not forget that your outline worksheet that I'm going to be handing out in a minute is due on Monday. And eventually you will have to type your outline. The reason why you don't have to type it and hand it in on Monday is because as you continue with, if you continue more research and finding out more things, your outline might change. And that's okay. It's not a set in stone outline. The second you write it and hand it in to Mrs. Wright, it's not, okay, now I can't change anything because I wrote it down. Change is okay, and making sure that it's the strongest points possible to make your claim could possibly change. So that's okay, and at the end you will eventually type out your outline. And also make sure that your sources are down on this worksheet, because if you don't have any sources, you will not get any points. On this outline worksheet, when it says sources, you will have to write, to get full points for your sources, you have to write those 4 things down. So my suggestion to you would be to write those 4 things down somewhere in case you don't get this worksheet done in class. So then you know the 4 different things that you have to have for your sources to get full credit on Monday.